want to do is remember that all flowers are different. So if you want to incorporate some different flowers, I'm going to show you some different techniques. This is going to be all coming from different directions. So I'm going to start with a stem, and I'm going to keep them nice and curved. And then I'm actually going to draw a light, sketchy circle. I'm going to create a center. This is going to be similar to a daisy. And then from there, you're going to create petals going outward, keeping in mind the same distance all the way around. And then creating slightly imperfect edges. And this is going to give it more of a realistic look. Then you can come back and erase your guiding circle. You can then add your leaves. Simple or more complicated as you want. You just need to remember to keep them matching on each flower. So that was more of a daisy-like flower. And I'm going to do over here more of a poppy. And these are really fun flowers that have more of an open pattern. So this petal is the one in front, and we see the one behind. And you may want to have some smaller flowers or even little buds. And so I'm going to create a tulip. Start with like the front petal and then go around, and remember they're not gonna be perfect. Tulip petal or leaves have really cool, sometimes folded leaves on either side. Mine looking more organic and real by not having perfect outside shapes. And some short, some larger circles, and you might want to start thinking about incorporating some of your favorite flowers. One of my favorites is definitely these peonies, and I'm going to try to do a better one. More of an open facing poppy, sorry. So I'm going to start with a circle, and then I'm going to just loosely create an open looking flower. And I want it to look different than the one next to it. It's going to have a slight yellow center around that. So those are all some different types of flowers. Then you can go back and add some different types of leaves. You can do as many as you want. You want to think about varying sizes and shapes. The tulip I created, I don't really love, but I like most of my other flowers. So you can erase what you don't like. Maybe, like me, you don't like your tulip, and instead replace it with one that you do like. So I'm going to create a daisy. and it's gonna be very fun. This is a little bit more of an imaginative exercise where it's not all based on exact shape. So then you're gonna create your leaves, and you can continue to do as many as you want. If you wanted, you could create some details in the centers. We're going to add outline with Sharpie. Here's my example that when I wasn't explaining to you, and I have 2 tulips, 2 peonies, some of these more daisy-like flowers, one on its side, and a little bud. So that's what you're going to do. You're going to outline it with a Sharpie, or after you watercolor, you can outline it with a regular ballpoint black pen. How to watercolor. I'm using our class set, but if you do not have watercolor, you can color. Once you outline with Sharpie, you can color with colored pencils or even crayons and use various colors, and it should still look really fun. So if you don't have watercolors, you can follow the color suggestions, or you might look up some pictures and make up your own. You want to keep variety as you begin to color in. I'm going to start with my bright green, and I'm going to mix a little bit of a darker green with it, and I'm going to use this as my base. Middle green for stems, always go back and darken. I'm using a large brush because it spreads the color out more, and then you can darken it with a lighter brush. Nice clean lines. You can use a thinner brush for your stems. For purposes where right now I'm trying to go a little bit faster, so I'm using a little bit of a larger, more watery brush. A little bit of yellow to your green if you're wanting it to look more warm, more bright and springy. And you can actually paint that in to some of your leaves as if they're still wet. It looks really nice to add a little bit of variety. Wet on wet is what it's called. Fun with it. You can add a separate, more cool green, or even a little bit of brown mixed if you're trying to make a warm, darker green. That can be used kind of towards the base of one of your leaves, or even as part of the stem. Some variety, and I'm wanting this to look more playful and not quite as realistic as some of my artwork. To practice switching brushes when you are noticing things like going outside the lines, especially if you're working on a thin area. back on some leaves and add some details. That is a great, like for this leaf, I may come back with a darker green and go along those Sharpie lines. If you did not use Sharpie, it's going to smear if you used a regular ballpoint pen, and so you would actually have to outline after you painted with a ballpoint pen if you didn't have a thin Sharpie. Okay, so I kind of did most of my stems, and now I'm ready to create my flowers. I'm going to go ahead and create the petals. And again, I'm going to work on using a medium-sized brush so that I make it lighter at first. So if you always want to work with light colors to dark. So I'm switching out my colors. I'm going to go to a nice pinkish red with plenty of water so it lightens up. I might mix a little bit of purple into it. And let's see. Add a little bit more water. You can always test your colors on paper towels. So I'm going to be working on this open poppy here. And I want to keep my brush nice and even. Some darker layers of this color after I do this initial wash. A bit more of that pigment. I'm going to go along some of my edges. Bottom. The edge here. You just have to go along and add a little wet to it. I wasn't liking the way it was looking. You might want to switch brushes. The center is still pretty light yellow. Put yellow all around. A little bit of green at the very bottom. Ooh. And if you just messed up like I did, you could always dab out some of that green with your paper towel. All right, so there's one example. I might come back and darken some areas. I'm going to use a similar color for my next flower, and I'm going to skip a couple before I use this color because I want it to be nice and bright, and I want to use some different colors and keep it balanced. So creating a nice, here we go, I might create this part for our nice shadow along the poppy. Might use some beautiful purple, and I'm going a little bit darker here. with a bigger brush to add my lighter colors. Peach color, I'm going to use a little bit of my yellow and a little bit of my pink, and I'm going to use that for a beautiful tulip over here. Tutorials on how to paint flowers, and if you want them to look really realistic, it's really fun to practice and to look at photographs of flowers. I feel like, oh, I messed up the background there. Always kind of mix and match your colors, and the more you study flowers, the more you can make them look more realistic. Purple with the pink to create a different tone for this purple flower here. And I might use some of that for my tulip. And I'm just turning my piece, and I'm going to use a nice bright orange, and then I'm going to mix a little bit of red. Yellow towards the center. My brush had a little bit of orange in it. Up any areas, you can go back and while they're still wet, you can dab it with a paper towel. I'm going to use a darker orange along certain edges, kind of give it a fun. Mine was pretty light. And if you finish your flowers and you want to start adding a cool background, you may want to wait till it's dry before. Ooh, this one didn't really quite work out so well over here. Create a really fun, colorful background. You might want to wait till your flowers are more dry. I'm going to use blues and purples to create just a fun, carefree background. I'm going to start from areas that I know are more dry. And you want to start fairly light. But what you can do is, while it's still wet, jump from your blue to maybe a little bit of purple, maybe add a little water to blend it in. And this is kind of the fun part, is you can then take that color up, creating almost like a stained glass effect. And when you're wanting to switch colors, think about what would mix well with it, whether it's a cool blue again, green perhaps. Keep in mind what colors are around there if you want it to pop. I'm going to go for a cooler blue up here. Add more water if you're wanting it to lighten up even more. Because it will really create a fun, more whimsical spring. A lot of water as you spread it around. You can do is add a little bit of salt, and that will create a very neat texture. It will make your water spread out even more. With the fun spreading of color, using plenty of water as you go. Until you filled your background. You would fill any spaces that you want. You could leave more white if you wanted. And you can always go back with just some water and a brush and fill in any white areas that you do not want to have white. Hope you had fun. I hope this was a easy way to paint some beautiful